Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 45, can you believe it, of The Renny Show. Hello, Jenny.
Hello, 45. I wish that was my age, but it sadly isn't. It's really nice to be here, and the sun is shining. It feels like spring, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So this is a spring episode. It feels like
absolutely.
the long, dark days of February are long past, and I think we've had sunshine. We've had sunshine in Oxfordshire for the
Yes,
last 3 days, consecutive days, which is
I know.
almost unheard of.
It's
So
amazing, isn't it? Same in Lincolnshire. So we're both, if you're listening, we're both full of the joys of spring today because it's wonderful. So you may notice that we're doing our live broadcast a day later than planned, but we're here. We've got the usual thing in store for you where we will ask each other questions that the other one doesn't know about in advance. So it could go anywhere, and it probably will. So let's get started then, Jenny. Over to you for question number 1.
it is, as you may know, International Women's Day on Saturday. And my question is, how do we ensure that we are moving towards a safer space for those marginalised and underrepresented groups that are often missed out of International Women's Day?
Gosh, that's a really, really interesting question. For me, I think it's all about engaging in conversation. Um, Communication. I mean, you're a positive communication specialist, so it's all about the communication and opening those lines of conversation to find out who wants to be a part of the conversation. That it's sometimes difficult. We've had conversations on the show before and with guests about sometimes how difficult it can be to create a safe space for people who feel marginalized and underrepresented to feel safe without making other people potentially feel unsafe themselves because of the inclusion of those people. And I think that's it's a difficult balance to achieve, I think. And the only way is to, for me personally, is to just ensure that positive lines of communication are open, and that also that people are willing to listen. We need people engaged in the conversation. There's the diversity of thought is brilliant. It's absolutely fine for people to have different points of view. But if those points of view aren't all brought to the table, then we can't move forward. And it really is important that we do move forward and make sure that these spaces are safe for the people that want to be in them. So yeah, I definitely positive lines of communication is absolutely key for me.
There was a reason. I own my bias. There was a reason why I asked that question. There were multiple reasons.
Okay.
And I think we both, as we would both fully, openly acknowledge, we sit in the white cis women privilege. And
Yes.
so for me, it feels very important that we have those conversations. And I used safer space on purpose because
Yeah.
earlier today I was in a fabulous conversation about inclusive language with Lindsay McGlone. If you
Okay.
are not connected with Lindsay, I would suggest that you do connect with her, because although she's the first person to say she doesn't know everything, she knows a lot, and she's
Yeah.
really frank and honest and transparent about all sorts of things to do with inclusion and many marginalized and underrepresented groups. And absolutely, having been curious, I often
Yeah.
say, don't we, replacing judgment with curiosity is one of my mantras. So
Yeah.
having those conversations, even when they feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
I believe is the way forward. And owning when you are challenged, for your views or your thoughts, that you are clear about why you have them, why you've taken that position, that you want to create safer spaces, and asking people, those marginalized and underrepresented groups, asking them what safer looks like for them, rather than
Yes.
me assuming that I
Yeah.
know what safer looks like.
Yeah.
Because it's different for everybody. And although I'm talking about groups, we also have to understand, don't we, that within those groups are individuals.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot here about labels being for tins, not people. And and so although we talk about groups, because otherwise it gets very complicated, we talk about groups, but actually within those groups are individuals who may have a range of opinions within it. So all of those things about listening,
Yeah.
you can accept without understanding.
Yeah.
We can accept that somebody else's experience is very different from our own, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We can choose, can't we? We can choose to just accept it. So
Absolutely.
I think there are many things that we can do. We were talking about how you make change in your business every day, and
Yeah.
one of the things that I'm really passionate about is moving towards we've never done, are we, but moving towards safer spaces, what that looks like,
Yeah.
what it feels like, who wants to be involved, so that all people can feel that they have a space to be heard, to be listened to be part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like the fact that you highlighted the word safer rather than specifically safe, because, as with all things, and anyone listening that has listened to us before, we talk a lot about perfection and how we don't believe in it for various reasons. You'll have to search for that particular episode. But to call a space safe is potentially actually quite difficult, because there are so many people who have a different version of feeling safe in that space. So having the aspiration of creating safer spaces, I think, is absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Well, that was one of my key learnings from the
Yeah.
fabulous Lindsay this morning. So it's like, and she said that it stuck with her
Yeah.
in terms of what she was learning, and therefore it was passed on, and I grabbed it with both hands and thought, I love that. It makes perfect sense to me, because we're never done, are we? There's always more that we can do. Might be little things, might be big things, but we can always ask questions, we can always ask more. And as you say, listen.
Yeah.
When people give us the answer, really listen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like Lindsay is someone that everyone really needs to connect with, including me. So we will make sure her contact details are put in the notes so that you can all
absolutely
connect.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay,
we're off to a flying start.
Yeah, brilliant start. So my first question for you, Jenny, because this is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, both for myself and for clients in various different conversations I've been having with people. So have you got at least one top tip for reaching your potential for people who are feeling that they're not in the space of, really embracing their potential?
Yes. And I had another conversation this morning about exactly that. So one of the things I'm famous for, one of the things I'm nearly famous for, is helping people reclaim their lost brilliance.
Yes.
And the place I always start is the things that you do naturally, really well. And I had an example of that this morning, more of which later. And I was having a conversation, and this person just did what they did naturally. And then they apologized, and they said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That wasn't really, that's not my role." but I love it. And I had this idea,
Yeah.
and so I wanted to share it with you. And I said, that's it. That what you have just done there is, I said, can I ask you a question? And my question was, is that something that it feels like that's something that comes really naturally to you?
Yeah.
Do you ever say to yourself, well, if I can do it, anybody else can. I'm not really special. And she went, all the time, all the time. And I went, that's it. So my top tip for people who feel that they're not reaching their potential is to start by looking at the things that you find really easy. And they're probably also the things that you love doing because they're easy. We've all
Oh,
been conditioned, haven't we, to think that we have to work a lot on our weaknesses, and
oh yes, we have to work
we
hard.
have to work hard. But if you're doing the things that come naturally to you, it's likely that you'll find them easy, um, and you'll be in flow. And the thing to do is to recognize that uh, they are your special skills.
Yeah.
And just because you can do them doesn't mean that the rest of us can. So they are special. Make a note of them, and use them as often as possible. And just see what happens on two levels. A, how you feel,
Yeah.
and B, what happens to your world, to your potential. Because I suspect it will open up huge opportunities for you.
Yeah.
And we would love to hear if anybody does that. We'd like all our listeners to do that. If you are in that position, we would love you to come and share with us what's happened when you've done it.
Yeah, absolutely. That, I mean, that's absolutely a way of stepping into your own power, isn't it? Just the way you've described that. And I think my top tip would be an extension of that, to have a look at what is it about those things that make them so enjoyable, come so easily to you. Um, I think once you understand not only what they are, but why they're important to you, why you're good at them, what makes them a really important thing for you and your potential, that level of self-awareness is just priceless. Because what other areas have you got in your life that could be similar and that you could also be exploring as part of your potential, because they're along the same lines as those initial things that you think of as your strengths? So I think that's just starting with that one tip. That is one heck of a journey for someone to go on to explore what those are and the why behind them. That's incredible. So let us know, folks. Let us know what happens. We'd love to know.
Exactly. We say at the top of the show, don't we, that we don't know what the questions are, and they
Yeah.
can go in any direction. So my second question is quite a departure
Okay.
from the first two, and I am asking it because spring is springing and the sun is shining. So my question is, Rachel, what is your favorite sandwich?
Ooh. Okay. I was actually having a debate about this with myself the other day, because I have two particular favourites.
You're allowed to. You're allowed
Am
to.
I allowed to? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I have to say my favourite all-time sandwich is cheese and pickle.
Oh, yes.
I just can't beat cheese and pickle. I don't even really care what cheese it is. And I'd prefer Branston, but I'll take any pickle. I mean, any chutney for that matter. Fantastic combination. I have very, very happy childhood memories of cheese and pickle sandwiches. But I'm also very partial to an egg mayonnaise sandwich. So that probably comes in at a very, very close number two. There's not much in it. I love them both, but cheese and pickle just about pips it.
And is the bread important for you in terms of white bread, brown bread, sourdough, blue? We have so many choices. Who knew there were so many
I
types of
know,
bread
yeah.
that you could
Maybe we should
choose
do a show
from?
about bread. But yes, I mean, I am very partial to sort of brown or wholemeal that has seeds and bits, and doorstop sandwich, cut off an actual loaf rather than pre-sliced. That's good old fashioned doorstop sandwich. Love it. Oh, I want one now. So
I just had one before the show.
We've just had so Alison McInnes is watching. I was going to say listening. I went watching and listening. She says, "Me too. Cheese and pickle." Thank you, Alison. Brilliant sisterhood there for the cheese and pickle sandwich.
Well, I might be. You might think I'm a Philistine because I love cheese, but I also I like it when it's got lettuce and salad cream, not mayonnaise, salad cream in it. I love cheese and salad cream. And so that would be a high, that would be a really high, my top favorite. But then there's also the kind of chicken and stuffing, at Christmas, the day after you've had turkey or whatever, and you have that turkey sandwich with stuffing in and a bit of cranberry jelly sauce, whatever, with it. That just takes some beating, doesn't it? So those two are my favorite. But I think there's that wonderful childhood memory of sandwiches when you went on picnics, because it never rained in the summer when we were little, did it?
No.
Always...
Isn't that funny? But it's so true.
Yeah, so sandwiches, I think sandwiches, there are a whole generation of us for whom sandwiches, really simple sandwiches, because we didn't have the whole range of fabulous bread that we have now. It was kind of white or brown, wasn't it? White or brown, sliced or unsliced for most of us, I think. I'm making an assumption there. If you know different, then please let us know, because we'd like to know that as well. They were the staple of picnics, family days out, all sorts of things, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
The humble sandwich.
Love it. Okay. Well, on that note, not all too hungry and salivating now. Deborah Wiley's listening as well. Hi, Deb. She says, fried egg and Branston pickle for me, and yes, proper bread. Fried egg and Branston pickle together.
Oh, that's a new one.
That's interesting. Well, I'm going to have to try that one. I've not had that one before. So thanks for the tip, Deb. I shall get back to you on when I have a go at that one. Oh, brilliant. Okay, so my next question for you, Jenny, and I think it's really topical for us with the Renny Show, because obviously we broadcast, we live stream, so it's video and audio. People can then catch up on places like YouTube so that they can watch the video as well as listening, or they can choose the audio version to catch up on the podcast platforms. So, obviously the difference between the two is video, and a lot of podcasts don't perhaps have video. And in general terms, it feels at the moment that everyone's been talking about video in terms of social media and all these different things. So how important do you think video is for engaging the audience?
Well, I think it is really important. And the thing I love about video is, particularly live video, is that what you see is what you get. So we are very proud of the fact that we do this live. It isn't scripted, as you can tell. It isn't scripted. It's raw and real in the best possible way, because actually what I feel is really important is that human to human connection. And I think when you can see somebody, you can hear the tone in their voice when you're listening to an audio, but when you see their expression, their body language, their whole way of being, I think video adds an extra dimension. Having said that, I've resisted making videos on TikTok and other things, because I just have. But I'm not going to anymore. I'm going to kind of embrace it because, and I think that natural, I think you can get sucked into shoulds about video.
Yes,
Oh, I
yes,
should do it this way. I should do it that way. This is how, this is the perceived wisdom. And I get that there are, you want good lighting and you want this, that, and the other, and you want clear text. But I do think there is something about being real. There's, we often talk, don't we, about fake book and Instagram and people
yes,
having this perception of successful people having all their ducks in a row and all that together. Um, and for the vast majority of us, that isn't true most of the time. So I think there is something very powerful about engaging with somebody who you go, they're just like me.
yeah, 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 yeah,
They're
absolutely.
just like me. And actually that creates that connection, doesn't it? That
Yeah,
again, safer place to be because you think, oh, I could I could talk with that person or I could connect with them. I'd like a conversation. So you're building that relationship.
yeah, absolutely. And I would definitely echo all of that. And I think for me, it's about variety because people take in information in different ways. So some people will thrive on having it visual as well as auditory, but others will prefer to just listen. So that's one of the beauties I think about the way we do this particular show. When I'm talking about video, it gives people options, and when you're talking about video on social media in terms of TikTok or Instagram Reels or other platforms are available, all these different things. I think it can just in the same way that a lot of people will post selfies. It's the same kind of thing in terms of having that visual representation and being able to look. Well, you can't look them squarely in the eye unless you're in the same room, but it's that ability to actually see the reality of someone, to see that that other human face. And I just think it's really powerful, like, very much like you've said, in terms of creating that connection. And it's definitely something I've been using selfies and that sort of thing for a long time, but not really done that much in the way of video. Obviously, we do this show every fortnight, and so all 45 episodes, 44 at the moment, 45 later today, will be available on YouTube for people to be able to see, obviously visually as well as listen to. But I think video really seems to be, it's just taken off massively, hasn't it, in recent years on the social media platforms. And so we're almost missing a trick if we don't engage with that in some way. I mean, personally, I'm not on TikTok because of its origins, but the whole short form video idea I think is brilliant. So I choose to do it on other platforms instead, but it's definitely something I'm wanting to do more of because I think it's so good for creating connection. So yeah, I think we're on the same page again, aren't we, Jenny? Just to make a change.
Oh, fancy that.
Oh dear. Right, well, your last question then, please, Jenny.
So there's a tiny little bit of a backstory behind this.
Oh, go
So
for it.
I, as a business owner, have always resisted niching.
Yes.
We're often told, advised, encouraged that niching is a really important thing to do.
Yes.
And I think it's safe to say, in true honesty, I've never found it. So far yet.
Yeah.
I've always resisted it. I kind of no, I don't like it, don't want to, all of that stuff, resistance. Anyway, I was doing a challenge last week,
Okay.
and we had been asked to think of an idea that really excited you about something, and it had to be something that you could already do,
Okay.
but you hadn't necessarily thought of turning into a business idea or an opportunity.
Okay.
And so I came up with mother-in-laws. I am
Ah,
one,
yes.
and I have been a daughter-in-law. So I have had much experience of mother-in-lawing. And then I did some research and I looked around and I found that obviously there's a whole raft of jokes. I think it's probably, in a nutshell, it is probably the most maligned, misunderstood,
Yeah.
misrepresented, and just miss uh, relationships on the planet, because it is tricky, let's face it.
Yeah.
So my question
Ooh.
is, when I see the word mother-in-law, what immediately comes into your head? What are the things that you immediately think of?
Okay.
What's your perception of
Yeah.
mother-in-laws, laws?
Yeah. Okay. Fascinating question, and I did see your post all about this, and I think it's brilliant. So for me, I mean, I consider myself very lucky in terms of mother-in-law experiences. Um, because I think too often the assumption, perhaps before you're married or when you're getting married, oh goodness me, mother-in-law, that there can be quite a negative perception, can't there, of
Mhm.
mother-in-law. And for me, I've been incredibly lucky at being accepted and having a great relationship. And, my personal experience has been a really good one. And of course, would I say something different if I'd had a different experience? Quite possibly. If I'd had a horrendous experience of a mother-in-law, then I'd probably be saying something quite different. But my immediate thought when I hear the phrase mother-in-law is just all good things: fantastic support, warmth, wisdom. All these are amazing things. Help. Advice. People who have been there that might know a thing or two more than you. And there's a kind of there's a respect connotation in there as well. And again, this might be different for different people depending how you're brought up. But I was brought up to respect your elders, and so there is an innate respect that comes with that as well. But obviously, what I say, obviously, not necessarily obvious. One of the things about respect is, yes, there is an argument to say there is a certain level of respect that you give to certain things to certain people, but they also have to earn it. It's not 100% just given. And I've been very fortunate to have a really great experience in that sense, and the respect has been no problem whatsoever. So yeah, I don't know how that accords with some of the experiences you've heard people talking about since you've asked the question.
I think that um, there are a whole, range of experiences, from the
Yeah,
absolutely dire, awful,
yeah,
and the um, like you explain, fabulously warm. And I think what society focuses on, if you think, what was interesting to me was that, if you look up, if you Google mother-in-law jokes,
yeah,
there are thousands of them, and different, almost any comedian, male or female, that you could mention will
yeah,
probably have used a mother-in-law joke in their routine in some way,
yeah.
shape, or form. And yet, father-in-laws are never mentioned. That they're just not. It's not a
Oh,
joke. Very rarely
interesting.
is there a, if you Google father-in-law jokes, they're almost non-existent. So that whole genre of the mother-in-law joke has become such a big deal, and
Yeah.
I think contributes to the whole idea that you dragons.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I said in my social media post this morning, I was watching the Great Pottery Throwdown last night,
Yeah.
catching up because it's a lovely, gentle, fabulous, positive, just
Yeah.
gorgeous, so talented, fabulous program. And they were doing hellmouth fireplaces, which is obviously a thing.
Yeah.
And the one of the contestants was saying, "Oh, it's a bit like your mother-in-law, this, isn't it?" And everybody who heard it kind of rolled their eyes. It was that classic, "Oh, I get what you
Yeah.
mean." Um, and Siobhan, who's the host, was going, "Oh," she said, "I always wondered what hellmouth fireplaces were for, and now I know. It's a place for your mother-in-law."
Oh,
and
wow.
and I thought, gosh, and it was said lightly. There was no malice, intended, but it's that perpetuating the language around
Yeah.
mother-in-laws are tricky. They and some of them are tricky, fierce,
Mm.
unfair, unhelpful. There's a lot of uns, and it. I suppose it just got me thinking around the way that when we perpetuate language,
Mm.
um, and it kind of tied to our first question,
Yeah.
when we perpetuate language around that relationship, we set expectations, don't we?
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
and I and there's that. So part of what I want to do is kind of change that perception. So I'm going to start talking about mother-in-lawsome. Um,
Fantastic.
so I've got a whole thing now, a program. So if you want to be a mother-in-lawsome rather than a mother-in-law, then that's a great thing to be, and that we can start to change and it's I think it is one of the trickiest relationships because it involves
Yeah.
so many transitions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you have to accept that your transition from um your children, your offspring, are no longer children, they are adults, and they
Yeah.
have made decisions that may or may not have included you. And that when they make a decision about their partner, whether it's short, long term, or whatever, that um, they have made that themselves, and you basically are, then in in a different kind of relationship. Um, so it there are, it takes some navigating, I
Yeah.
think.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so it was. I was just interested in your perception, and I think fabulous mother-in-laws don't get enough mention.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I'd never thought about it in terms of the comparison with fathers-in-law. And you're right. As soon as you said it, I mean, I haven't Googled it and researched it like you have, but as soon as you said it, I'm like, yeah, I can't think really of uh, any comedians I remember talking about fathers-in-law. It's always the mother-in-law, isn't it?
Mm.
Which, so what does that, what kind of message does that keep perpetuating in society in terms of expectations? Yeah. God, that's an eye-opening one. That's fascinating. Okay, so
So yeah,
I'm going to my final question is actually going to segue nicely from that, based on what you've said. So, what can we do to big up the fathers-in-law then? Do you know what I mean? I feel like the fathers-in-law have all had a bit of a bum deal in terms of what society thinks of them.
I think they probably. So if you go back to what you said about your mother-in-law and its help and support,
Yeah,
often when children are involved, I think possibly, and again, it's not. Um, I haven't done my research in the same way, but I think it's thinking about what does, from an in-law, parents-in-law, let's do
Yeah.
that. Parents-in-law, what kind of help do they offer? I always remember my mum, my granddad, so her father-in-law was amazing. And when we were looking at choosing schools, my dad was abroad, and it was my granddad who, you know, drove my mum to schools and supported her while she was asking
Yeah.
questions. And we had a hilarious thing where, because they shared the same surname, of course, I think one of the schools that we looked around assumed that they were husband and wife rather than which my granddad took great pleasure in pointing out. So I think it's thinking about the types of support, and maybe the reason we're quieter about father-in-laws is that maybe the support they offer is different. And again,
Yeah.
any fathers-in-law who are listening, who'd like to share with us what you'd like us to do to big you up, I'm, really open to that. And I think it perhaps is because mother-in-laws are an easy target to pick on, but also
Yeah.
probably they do maybe more of the practical kind of ongoing. Maybe they do the lion's share, the lioness's share
Yeah.
of the support. Would be my guess, but it is a guess, and I'm very
Yeah.
happy to be corrected if anybody says, "No, that's not right, that's not true
Yeah.
at all."
But no, a really interesting topic, actually. As I've said, I've had a fantastic experience of mother and father-in-law. So I don't know if they're listening, but Pat and Alan, thank you. The and for both of them, again, what you've said about the support perhaps being different. Absolutely, there are potentially some differences in the nature of the support, which again is fascinating in itself in terms of perhaps gender roles and the so-called norms or otherwise within that, because it can be anything. But yeah, I have to say, it's made me feel really grateful having this conversation.
Hooray! We love a bit of gratitude.
We do,
And
we
again,
do.
if you're grateful for your in-laws, then we'd love to hear why. What is it
Yeah,
that makes them so
absolutely.
special? And we can big them up too then, can't we?
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. Oh, brilliant. That was a really fascinating final couple of questions. So thank you for injecting that, Jenny. That was brilliant. Really enjoyed that. So if you've enjoyed the show, folks, then please do carry on the conversation and pop us your comments. As you know, we love to carry on the conversation. Don't forget, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time with our next show. And if I can just pull up the right piece of paper in front of me. That's embarrassing. I should have done this previously, but anyway, moving swiftly on. But we've got some very exciting guests coming up. So we've very recently we've had Maddie Alexander Grout and Claire Clements, who were fascinating guests to have on the show. We're very thrilled to be able to tell you that on the next show, on the 19th of March, so put it in your diaries, 19th of March at 12:30, we're going to be in conversation with Fiona Scott, PR guru, if I may call her that. I'll have to ask her whether she's
You
happy with
may.
that
You
title.
may call her that.
Yeah. But absolutely beautifully wonderful person who is a PR expert, journalist, and I can guarantee we'll have some very interesting things to say. So do tune in for that one, folks. But apart from that, thank you very much for tuning in and listening. And we hope to see you again soon.
And don't forget, we would love you to subscribe to on whichever platform you listen to. We're also on YouTube. So if you would like to watch us and listen to us on YouTube, please subscribe to that. And tell all your friends. If you've enjoyed the show,
Absolutely.
tell all your friends about us so that we can get more people listening. We would also invite you to carry on being inspiring and brilliant until we next meet. So have a great fortnight and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.